So the plant cell has many of the same structures and organelles as in the animal cell. I'm going to put on the board the picture, okay, of the plant cell, and it will have labeled all the organelles that are the same from plant and animal cells. So you're going to write these, okay? You're going to write these in the first part of your notes. So, for example, both animal and plant cells have ribosomes. Both animal and plant cells have ribosomes. They also both have Golgi bodies. They both have an ER, endoplasmic reticulum. They both have mitochondria. They both have cytoplasm. They both have a cell membrane. They both have a nucleus, a nuclear membrane, and a nucleolus. All of those are organelles that are the same in animal and plant cells. Hannah?
I just wrote ER instead of endoplasmic.
That's fine. So we're not going to spend time in the notes talking about these organelles again because we already know what they do. Or we should already know. Or we at least have notes to tell us what they do. Yes. Yes, but they're a little bit different from animal and plant cells. Yeah, that's why we leave it off this list.
Oh.
Okay. So now we're going to go into the parts of the plant cell that are different between animal and plant cells.
I'm not done.
As long as you have some of them, you don't have to have all of them. It's fine.
Actually, I think I can remember.
All right. There are 3 major differences between plant and animal cells. Number 1, all plant cells have a cell wall. I'll describe what that's for in just a second. Number 2, they do have a vacuole, but instead of having many small vacuoles, they have one large one. That big blue spot there is the one large vacuole in the plant cell. And then number 3, plant cells have a totally separate organelle that is not even in the animal cell at all. That's the chloroplasts, which we'll also get to in just a minute. Okay? Here's the cell wall, this big, thick green line all around the outside. Here's the vacuole, the one large one. And then here's one of the chloroplasts. There are multiple chloroplasts within a plant cell. There's one here, 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 here. I'll show you at the end a video of like a microscopic view of a plant cell, and you'll see they're really floating all throughout the cell. There's lots of them. Trinity?
Do things like the chloroplasts go around and change places in the plant cell?
As in, like, are they? Yes, they're kind of like swimming around in there. You'll see what I mean. It looks like they're swimming at least. Hannah?
Is the video like an animated one, like the one where...
No. It's like an actual view of a microscopic slide.
Yeah.
Landon?
So do animal cells have a cell wall?
Mm-mm.
And also,
Animal cells do not have a cell wall.
why does one vacuole?
Why does what?
Why is one vacuole?
You'll see. We'll get there.
I was thinking about it yesterday when the notes said that I think it was isn't it the chloroplast that makes the plants green?
Yes.
What about like plants and flowers? What makes the petals okay?
I don't know what it is, but the chloroplasts are not located in the petals. They're in the stem and the leaves. Okay? All right, hold on to your question. We gotta move on for now. Okie dokie. A minor difference, so those are the three major differences. There is one minor difference as well. The minor difference is this. While plant cells do have Golgi bodies, the Golgi bodies perform a different job in plant cells than they do in animal cells. So yes, they still have the same organelle, but it functions differently in a plant cell. But we'll talk more about what that job is in just a little bit. Okay? Not right now. All right. So, plant cell organelles. First, plant cells have a cell wall. It is located outside the cell membrane. Now, this does not mean they don't have a cell membrane. Okay? They just have the cell membrane plus the cell wall. Okay? Look up here. It's all right here. It's also what kind of gives it a square shape as opposed to a circle. Okay? The cell membrane, I'm going to outline in like a dotted line. All the way around. Okay? So, think about it like a bubble. Is a bubble very strong?
No.
No, bubbles pop super easily, right?
Yeah.
But if you have a bubble inside of a cardboard box, that gives it a little more protection, right? Now it's still going to pop. We're just kind of using an analogy, okay? So that's the reason why plants have cell walls. It's an outer barrier that provides extra support for the cell and gives it its shape, okay? Plant cells and plants in general do not have protective coverings. Our body cells are protected by bones, by muscles, by tissues, by ligaments, by skin. Okay? We have things that give us structure and support, which is why we don't really need cell walls. Plants, however, if you take like a scraping off of the top of a leaf of a plant cell and put it under a microscope, you will be looking directly at the cells. Okay? So that's why they have that cell wall. They need an extra layer of support to help give it a little more shape. Otherwise, it's just a big mushy ball of cells, right? But the cell wall gives it its structure, allowing the stem to stand up, allowing the leaves to kind of perk up in one direction. You know what I'm saying? Okay? It gives them a little extra support and protection around the cell membrane there. Now, the cell wall in a plant is made of something called cellulose. Cellulose is a fiber that is composed of glucose molecules that are bundled together. Now, fun fact, anything that ends in ose, when it comes to science at least, typically has something to do with sugar. Cellulose is cell sugar. Okay? Sucrose is the kind of sugar that you bake with, like goes to your cookies. Table sugar. Okay? Fructose, like high fructose corn syrup, that is fruit sugar. Sugar you get from fruits. Glucose is your blood sugar. The more sugar you eat, the higher your glucose levels. Okay? Lactose, raise your hand if you or someone you know is lactose intolerant. Nathan, what can you not have if you're lactose intolerant? Parker? Dairy. Lactose is like milk sugar. Okay? Dairy sugar, basically. So, cellulose, in this case, is the kind of sugar used in cells. And that is like the brick, so to speak, of the cell wall. Okay? It's made out of a sugar called cellulose. So, that's the cell wall. The other difference we're going to look at is the vacuole. They do have a vacuole, just like animal cells, but in an animal cell, there were many small ones all throughout the cell, right? In a plant cell, they only have one large vacuole. Looks like one big old swimming pool in there, okay? And typically, it is filled with water. Sometimes nutrients, maybe sometimes a little bit of waste, but mostly water. Which makes sense because what do we have to give plants for them to survive?
Water.
Water. and sunlight, but water especially. Okay? It is a fluid-filled organelle that stores food and waste, and it improves nutrient absorption, helps them absorb nutrients into the cell. And then, unlike animal cells, plant cells often only have one large vacuole. When I show you the microscope video here in a second, you'll see that large vacuole is like, it's so big it pushes everything else off to the sides. Okay? Hattie, you okay? Okay. So, what happens when you don't water a plant?
It dies.
What does it begin to do?
Shrivel up.
Shrivel up and wilt, right? That happens because the vacuoles shrink, causing the cells to kind of crumple over. Okay? Let me show you a video here that shows lettuce, which is a plant, and the function of its vacuoles. Oh, here, I'll erase my drawing.
Beautiful drawing. Really good drawing.
Oh, thanks.
Salad.
Okay. Whoops. Okay, so this video, let me, I'll turn it back over, is showing you salad, or a leaf of lettuce that has been, it's kind of wilting. You can see the edges are kind of wrinkly. It's starting to get kind of wilted on the sides. So those vacuoles have kind of shrunk because there's no water in them. So it says the following video is a time-lapse video. It's speeded up about 720 times.
Wow.
What took 3 hours and 35 minutes in real time is shown in 18 seconds. So it doesn't happen this fast. It's obviously fast-forwarded, but you'll see the effects.
And some cold water?
Mm-hmm. Believe so.
It's expanded.
Wait, is there supposed to be
So as the vacuoles absorb the water into the cells and the cells expand, it kind of like de-wrinkles and kind of goes back to its normal shape.
Oh, it looks good.
Okay?
Healthy.
Those delicious.
So that just shows you kind of the differences between vacuoles that have lots of water and those that don't. Okay? Reagan, question.
So when it said when you talk to plants, they grow even bigger and they stay alive. I actually do that to our plants.
Well, interesting.
But also, there was a rice experiment where they put rice in 3 jars with water in it, and then they closed the lids of the jar. They put them in 3 separate rooms so the experiment would work efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
With one of the jars, they said nothing to it. With the second one, they said bad words to it and mean, hurtful insults to the rice.
Okay.
And then they complimented the other rice. After a couple of days, the one that was spoken, that had been insulted, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
had mold on it. But the other one,
Interesting.
they were fine. They were just.
Interesting.
So I wonder if it's some certain factor.
Like they're listening.
Yes.
I don't know.
They have some listening devices.
I don't know.
There may
Landon?
be more than UTIs. So a question and comment.
Okay, make it fast. We're gonna run out of time.
I'm not lactose intolerant because milk is not my favorite thing to do. But I know milk is not
Okay.
Ice cream.
Was that the microscopic video?
Stop. Okay, chloroplasts. Okay? Chloroplasts are only in plant cells. They're not at all in animal cells. Go fast here, okay? Because you're missing good stuff here. The chloroplasts are the food-making structures in plants. We know that plants are autotrophic, right? We discussed that earlier. That means they can make their own food. The process they use to make their own food is called photosynthesis, and that takes place in the chloroplasts. Okay? Now, the chloroplasts contain a chemical called chlorophyll. The best way to remember that is the chlorophyll fills the chloroplast. It's what goes inside of it. It fills it up. Okay, it's the chlorophyll. This is a green pigment that captures sunlight and converts it to glucose, which is the plant's form of food. This process is called photosynthesis. Now, once you write that, look up here. We're going to kind of geek out for a second. It's pretty cool. This is kind of extra stuff. All right. The chloroplast is shaped. Let me move that real quick. The chloroplast is shaped like this. Okay? Inside of the chloroplast, I can't remember the name, but it's like all these little green discs stacked up, almost like just stacks of circles or something. Okay? The inside, the inside is where all the chlorophyll is. Okay? This whole thing is green, and when you look at a plant, that's why it looks green, because there's so much chlorophyll in it. Okay? Now, in order for this process of photosynthesis to take place, there are 3 things you have to have. What do you have to give a plant for it to grow? Ethan?
Water.
Water, which the chemical formula is H2O. What else?
Oxygen.
Not oxygen.
Sun.
Sunlight. Okay, that's 1. You do have to have a gas, but it's not oxygen.
Oh.
Hannah?
Carbon dioxide.
That's right. Plants take in what we breathe out, right? So the formula for carbon dioxide is CO2. All right? So if we think about it like a recipe, here's 1 ingredient, a second ingredient, and a third ingredient. Okay? All of those have to go into the chloroplast in order for this process of photosynthesis to take place. What comes out of this machine, so to speak, okay, is the glucose, which is the sugar or the food for the plant, oxygen, right? Plants give off oxygen, which we then breathe in, and a little bit of water. Just a little bit. Raise your hand if you were in Miss Nide's class last year where you did the experiment with you put the plastic bag over the plant and watched the water droplets. Okay, maybe in other classes too.
We did that in our class.
Online.
We did that online.
Online.
That was when we did it online.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Okay. So that's proving that a little bit of water comes out of the plant. Okay, it's really formed more in droplets. It's called transpiration. But we'll get to that in the spring.
Yay.
So those are the 3 things that come out. Now, this is the exact formula for photosynthesis. Okay? If you were to write it as a chemical equation, okay, you would write H2O plus sunlight plus CO2 yields, which is like a big arrow. Okay, in chemistry, that just means these 3 combine to form these 3 things: glucose, oxygen, and a little bit of water. And then, if you want to be really fancy and really geek out on it, the formula for glucose is C6H12O6.
That's glucose.
Now, if you look at the periodic table back there, what that stands for, this means that a glucose molecule is made of 6 atoms of carbon, number 6 back there, capital C.
Where? I don't know.
It's on the right side at the top.
12 atoms of hydrogen, the red big H in the top left corner, number 1. And 6 atoms of oxygen, which is the red capital O, number 8. Okay? Now, again, you don't have to understand all of that. We will get into chemistry more in January. But that's just kind of extra information. But all of that is what happens within the chloroplast. Okay? Super, extremely, extremely important. Otherwise, the plant will die. All right? Hold on. Let me get to your question at the end. We got to finish these up. Okay? Now, third difference, or third kind of contrast to the animal cell is the nucleus. In the plant cell, the nucleus is actually located off to the side of the cell. Now, part of the reason why is because the vacuole is so big, it swells up and pushes everything out of the way. So it's located off the side. It's still home to the cell's DNA, not yet, which contains the chromosomes and direct the cell's activity. So it's still like the headquarters. It still does the same thing. It's just off to the side instead of in the center. Okay? Hold on, Reagan. Let me finish this up. And lastly, we have the Golgi bodies. The Golgi bodies. They're still located right here. You can't really see it very well in this picture, but they still look like a little pancake sack, kind of like in the animal cell. This picture is just not as clear as the other one. But they still have the Golgi bodies, but, however, in the plant cell, the Golgi bodies produce the cellulose, which we already discussed is the sugar that builds up the cell wall. Okay? So they still have Golgi bodies, they just do a different job in the plant cell. Instead of packaging the proteins, they produce the cellulose. Reagan?
So when plants are made mostly out of carbon, or that's one of their main the main elements that they're made out of.
Mm-hmm.
So when they take in carbon dioxide, is that why it changes into oxygen? Because they take the carbon from the CO2?
I can't say for sure, but I think so. Mm-hmm. Hannah?
Whenever I go outside, I usually sit down in front of my plants and just breathe on them.
Oh, here you go, guys.
Breathe on me. Breathe on me.
All right. Hold on, Parker. Okay, lastly, we're going to fill out this diagram. Okay? I have to do it this way because the one on the slideshow doesn't match the one you have in your notes. So, at the very, very top, this arrow is pointing to all of the ribosomes. Okay? I know it's a little blurry, but it's the little dots that are on the maze, the ribosomes. Going clockwise to the right of that, the next blank is pointing to the cell wall, this big, thick line all around the outside that makes it into more of a square shape than a circle. Next, we have the chloroplasts. There are several of them throughout the cell. Okay, they would be the green parts if it were printed in color, but there's one here and one here. Just two of them at least. Next, we have the Golgi bodies. Again, I actually kind of drew like some pancake shape almost on there because the picture's not super clear. But on the test, I will specify like what this is pointing to. That way you don't have to just guess. But that's the Golgi bodies. This big fluid-filled structure here is the vacuole. On our diagram, it looks blue. Next, we have the peanut-shaped structure. That's the mitochondria, just like in the animal cell. All right. Over onto the other side, this arrow is pointing to kind of blank area, blank space where there's no particular organelle. Remember, cytoplasm fills the whole rest of the cell. So this arrow right here is pointing to the cytoplasm. Next, this is pointing to the covering of the cell inside the cell wall. Okay, remember, kind of like that bubble inside the box. That's going to be the cell membrane. Then we have the ER. And then these three we know go together. The nucleus, this is trying to point to at least the whole thing in the middle. On the test, I'll have actual like specifications. Like underneath it, I'll have in parentheses the whole middle part. And then you know what I'm pointing to. Okay. Here it would be like the inside of the middle part. That would be the nucleolus. And then it'd be like the covering of the middle part. That would be the nuclear membrane. Okay. All right. So, on the test, you will have to label an animal cell and a plant cell, okay, as well as obviously finish the rest of the test. But in general, a lot of the things are similar. There's those three differences, though, right? What's one of the differences between plant and animal cell? Parker? It only has one. I'm sorry.
which is full of water.
Good. It only has one large vacuole. What's in the animal cell instead? There are several small vacuoles. Good. More than one. Hannah, what else is different?
So there, okay, so there is a cell wall and there isn't an animal cell.
Good. There is a cell wall, which an animal cell does not have. That's two differences. Trinity, another one?
They have chloroplasts.
They have chloroplasts. Very good. Landon?
They have a Golgi body, but it produces cellulose instead of acting as a nucleus in the animal cell.
Good. Instead of packaging proteins, the Golgi body has produced cellulose. Something else? Anything else you remember? We got all four of them, but there's some smaller ones. Reagan?
The nucleus is drifted more to the side because of the size of the vacuole.
Very good. The nucleus is off to the side. What about the shape of the cell in general? Ethan?
The animal cell is more circular, and because of the cell wall in the plant cell, it makes it more square. It makes it more square-like.
Very good. Excelente. All right, now I'm going to show you the video of the microscopic view of the plant cells.